We are live, ladies and gentlemen, for arguably the Suns' best game of the young season. And I do just want to repeat that the season is still very young. There's now 71 games left to go. And I am joined by a friend of the channel. And he's been on this channel a few times. You and I were talking backstage that I believe the last time you were on this channel was around the trade deadline when we traded for somebody named Kevin Durant. You might have heard of him before. I'm joined by my guest. Let's talk Wolves. How's it going, man? Long time no see.
Well, the season has been a lot more fun for me this year, but after tonight, obviously, the vibes. I mean, I expected kind of a loss just based off last night's game being a back-to-back, and it was really physical. I think Towns had like 41 minutes played last night. Yep. I mean, he was their best player, obviously, tonight, but just based off of last night's game, and a lot of their shots just looked flat. The defense they did not look good. But other than tonight's overall game, things are going pretty good.
Glad to hear it, man. I do just want to give a small warning to everybody who's watching right now. As you guys know me, I have two dogs, and they've been part of the show a few times. Sometimes I got to step out and open the door for them. But you just got a new dog who you said is a little bit lively right now. So we're just giving a warning. If you have to go in and out of the show, we totally understand. There's the dog. I'm going to full screen you real quick because that is a beautiful dog.
Yeah, she's very – ow.
That's a beautiful dog, man. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, she's a little riled up right now. But we'll pull through.
She'll give you the energy because I'm sure you need it after the Wolves lost tonight. So you guys, we're just going to be doing what we always do. We're going to be going over the numbers, giving our reactions, and I'm going to kind of put you on the spot in a little bit because I'm going to ask you about the Wolves' good season so far, on the exception, obviously, of tonight. And then maybe we'll talk a little Draymond Green suspension and all that. It's going to be a good show, y'all, and I do appreciate you taking time out of your night to join me. So let's just get started, man. You and I were talking backstage, and I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, man, the Suns won, ha, ha, ha. Like, yes, I'm hyped for the Suns. I'm hyped it was our best game of the season, but let's be real, man. You guys are coming off of a back-to-back. We just got Devin Booker back. We're obviously on fire for that. We actually made our three-pointers tonight, so you have a good chance at winning when it comes down to that. No Bradley Beal tonight, which was a little bit of a bummer for us. We were all expecting they were going to play. And as you tweeted throughout the game, it seemed like Karl Anthony Towns, for the most part, was carrying you guys. Anthony Edwards had an off night. So you just want to just give me your kind of overall reactions from the game and, just give me your thoughts, man.
Yeah, obviously the Timberwolves defense has been spectacular. I mean, it feels like each night their length just kind of suffocates like every single team. I mean, it's been fun. We knocked off Boston. We've knocked off Denver. I mean, Miami is no given win, except for obviously when Jimmy Butler sits as he always does against the Wolves. Overall, the defense has been really well, but tonight they did not look like they had their legs to them.
Yep.
The Suns honestly kind of got whatever shot they wanted, to be honest. They were hitting every three-pointer, like you said. I mean, that was kind of the case last night when they were playing the Warriors. It felt like all of their guys were just making every shot. So I'm not too worried about it defensively, but, yeah, the Suns, they were impressive to watch. I mean, then it's going to be a lot easier when you have Book and KD on the floor.
Speaking of KD, we were talking backstage. I was listening to the radio before we hopped on here, and Kevin Durant said, he's like, the Timberwolves are one of the best teams in the league. He even said, you guys had a back-to-back night last night. He understands what kind of a team you guys are, and I think you guys deserve a lot of credit. And, it's just one of those things, man. Like, the Suns will hopefully, I hope not, but like they're going to be on the end of a back-to-back one night where the team's just shooting lights out. It happens to like every team in the NBA, but yeah. I am so glad that Devin Booker is back, and it's been way too long since I played this last drop. Welcome back, Devin Booker.
Devin Armani Booker.
That I said we were going to talk about the stats like in a little bit, but I have to start with at least Devin Booker stats.
Oh, yeah.
And the key stat I want to focus on here is actually the minutes. 26 minutes, and he had 31 points. Now, he didn't shoot great from 3, 2 for 7, but he was 12 for 22 from the field, had 5 assists, 4 rebounds, only 2 turnovers and 2 fouls. 26 minutes, 31 points, man. And another thing, too, that people were kind of pointing out was he was moving really good because Bradley Beal, when he came back from his injuries, he had a few flashes of brilliance, but you could tell, the back injury was still bugging him. Maybe later I'll talk about that and everything. But Devin Booker looked like he was 100%, man, getting any shot that he wanted out there. And I always say this on the show. I'm getting repetitive, but I mean this as a compliment to Booker. It just doesn't surprise me anymore. It's probably like how you guys view Anthony Edwards. It just doesn't surprise me, man. He's just one of the best players in the league, a top 10 player in my opinion. One of, if not the best shooting guard in the league. No disrespect, Anthony Edwards. And it's incredible, man. What did you see from Booker tonight?
Every time he shot it, I thought it was going in.
Yep.
And that's
exactly.
kind of the case with him and KD. And usually the Wolves are really good at stopping
players like Booker.
I wouldn't say like the Suns play super ISO heavy. I guess I haven't been watching a ton of them this year. Just like, I guess in years past, like Booker can move the ball. KD it will rack up his assists. So I don't really consider them ISO-centric, but the Wolves usually, like, you guys have probably seen the highlights of like Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards taking down Kyrie and Luka Doncic from their first.
But you can do that all season long. Please do that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, you Suns fans know about the Dallas Mavericks. So usually the Wolves are pretty good in those like situations, but tonight, they had zero answer. I mean, KD's, when he shoots it, it's like every time in the mid range, you just know it's going in. Like it's like 100% lock. It's not going to be a miss.
I know you saw this too. I forgot who was guarding him, but like that one play where KD was like, I think kind of near the corner and just shot it. They called the foul. It went in. It was just one of those nights, man. I think him and Book both finished with 31 points, man. And KD, by the way, 35 minutes, only missed 4 shots. And I also saw this too. There was one point, especially like I wrote down in my notes, which maybe I'll talk about later, but I think the minutes and how Frank Vogel went about the rotations was pretty good tonight because especially in the first quarter and really like the first half, I think Frank Vogel did a good job of like rotating KD and Booker. Because first off, we'll talk about Karl Anthony Towns later, but Book and Cat were cooking in the first quarter. And then I remember Kevin Durant would go to the bench for a little bit. So it was good how they were going back and forth and the minutes rotation and everything. That was great to see. Devin Booker just makes everyone more calm when he's on the court. Even if Booker's not at 100%, just him being on the court is huge. Kind of reminds me of last year, when we had Chris Paul. Even if Chris Paul wasn't 100%, things were just much more calm when he was on the court. So if you want, man, we can just dive into the numbers real quickly, and then we can kind of get your perspective on the Timberwolves. We can talk, I'm sure it's probably Karl Anthony Towns is your MVP, spoiler alert. We'll dive into that in a minute. Let me just read you some numbers real quick, and I want to refresh my page to make sure I'm getting these right. The Suns shot 60% from the field tonight. They were 17 for 31 from 3, which is good enough for 54%. Both teams shot incredible from the free throw line, over 92 and 93%. You guys won the rebounding battle 40-32. We had 31 assists compared to the Timberwolves 18. I'm really big on assists, man. I don't care if you're the worst team in the league. If you have a high number of assists, you're probably going to win the game. That's how I look at basketball anyways. Let me see. I will say this, though, too, to credit both teams here. Low turnovers. 9 for the Suns, 6 for the Wolves. If there's one takeaway you can probably give to the Wolves right there is very low turnovers tonight. You guys crushed us a little bit in the paint, 60-54. And the Suns had 21 fouls, man. Our largest lead was 28. So I know our show's kind of jumping all over the place, but any takeaways from any like key stats that you took away? Do you want to talk about Karl Anthony Towns? Like, what numbers are you looking at that you can take away here?
I think the turnover one, because I'm pretty sure at least like 60% of those turnovers happened in like the first 3-4 minutes of the game.
I noticed that too.
And
yeah.
then after that, it was a pretty clean game. So I think like that was pretty like impressive on both sides, at least, of just like limiting it. Because at first it looked like, because Minnesota had like 3-4 like turnovers on the Suns there, like right away to start the game, and then after that it was like the Suns offense just went to town on the Wolves. It, again, yeah, never missed.
I mean, not to sound like a jerk, but this game was pretty much over at halftime. It was weird because there were sometimes the Wolves would go on runs and kind of cut back into the lead. But that's what I love about this current Phoenix Suns team is even though it's still early, our depth and our role players, the guys that we got during the offseason, are proving their worth in a way. Like we can actually send Devin Booker to the bench. And when Bradley Beal plays, we can send him to the bench and know we got guys to back us up and everything. That was one thing that I loved about tonight's game. And it's a game of runs. We all know that. It's basketball, you know. That's why, like, it's tricky. And later you can talk about it with how the Wolves are, you know, I believe still currently the number one defense in the league. But, like, that's what's tricky about being, like, a great defensive team in today's NBA, in my opinion, is the offense is so good. Like, defense doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Yeah. Real quick, just want to address this comment. Was this the, quote, get right game the Suns needed today? Look, you guys know me. I'm an optimist. Yes, but, like, I don't know. It's tricky just because of the circumstances that the Wolves were under. Every game's different. You got to have kind of a short memory and everything. But I'm glad we had this game. You know what I mean? It's better than a loss. And this was sort of a get right game for the Suns, but there's going to be more challenges in the future. I'm just glad Booker's back. Hopefully Bradley Beal is legit back next time we can see this big three, because if tonight was any preview of how the big three, or, you know, the Suns are going to look with the big three, it's scary. And real quick, one stat about that: at halftime, the Suns had 76 points without Bradley Beal, 63% shooting without Bradley Beal, 20 assists and 3 turnovers. I'm just like, it's scary, man. Like, the potential of this team, bro, it's insane. I don't really know where I was going with all that, but it gets me excited, man.
Because what are you guys, like 5-6 now?
We were 4-6. Yeah, we're 5-6 now, but yeah, we were 4-6
so
going
like,
into tonight. Yeah.
You guys might be 5-6, but that record is going to be completely different by the end of the season. So it's like, yeah, you guys have had your struggles, and there will be obviously an adjustment period trying to, you know, fit another player like Bradley Beal into the thing. But
exactly.
I mean, you're mixing in players with like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker who know how to get other people involved. So that shouldn't be that big of an issue on that end of things. It's not like where Minnesota's thing last year of putting 2 centers. That's a completely different ballgame than, you know, a couple guards and forwards. So they're positions as it is.
Exactly. One thing that may not get too much commentary, the switching and defense communication was top tier level tonight. They played exactly how you need against a team playing the second back-to-back. I agree with this comment, man, because one thing we've really struggled with is, you know, on paper, we look like we're a good defensive team, but we've had a lot of fourth quarter meltdowns. The defense could be much better. That comes from Frank Vogel, who preaches defense. And you know how I'm big on, like, low turnovers. Frank Vogel is big on the low turnovers and everything. So I agree with that. Also, I want to shout out Sam Cooper from the Timeline podcast. He had a great tweet earlier. We were pushing the pace. We were doing a good job of making sure you guys didn't get comfortable, especially Anthony Edwards. We were taking care of the ball. We were hitting our shots and everything. You know, that's just the kind of, oh, is that the dog right there? That was just the kind of game the Suns had, is what I'm saying.
That was the first bark we've heard. So
right, that's awesome. I'm glad it was on camera. Hopefully my voice didn't interrupt it.
Yeah. No, yeah, I was gonna say, the transition is where the Wolves get hurt the most. Obviously, if Rudy and Cat are on the floor, they have not been exposed as badly this season, but they've also been playing teams that aren't necessarily trying to do that. Where Toronto in the first matchup, Toronto likes to get up and run up and down the floor, and that was just kind of like difficult for the Timberwolves to stop. And if Minnesota gets a team in like the half court, it's pretty much game over for the other team's offense. So it was, yeah, I mean, like you said, like the Suns, made things uncomfortable for the Timberwolves. It didn't look like all night they were just kind of taking shots just to take them, and they were all flat.
Real quick, we can dive into like the Timberwolves stats real quick, but I just want to kind of go over a few more numbers, and then we can maybe read some numbers from the Timberwolves side, and then I kind of do want to talk to you just about the Wolves season thus far. But real quick, I want to give a shout out to Josh Okogie. I know I probably sound like a Josh Okogie stan. I've been defending him all season. I know you saw that tweet that I tweeted about him a few days ago. Tonight, I'm not gonna lie. I don't really know how he looked on defense too much, but he played 19 minutes, was 4 for 5 from the field, hit all 3 of his threes. And Josh Okogie plays with great energy and everything. I got to give Josh Okogie a shout out. I know he probably doesn't want to come off of the bench, but that's going to be a thing all season. It's going to be Keita Bates-Diop, or it's going to be him or somebody else, because Frank Vogel's even gone on record saying there really is no permanent fifth starter for now. So I got to give a shout out to Josh Okogie. I thought he played a great game tonight. It was good to see him actually making his threes, not being a liability out there. Drew Eubanks gave us some great energy off the bench. He played 20 minutes tonight, 13 points, 4 boards, 3 assists, had that poster, on Karl Anthony Towns, man. It was just one of those games, bro. Just everything was clicking. I thought Eric Gordon looked really good. Grayson Allen provides good minutes, man. It was terrific. Any key stats or MVPs, rough games from the Timberwolves side of things? Like, I don't know if you tweeted it out already, but how are things looking over on the Timberwolves end for you?
Yeah, I mean, Josh Okogie, like the threes, like just seeing him as like a Timberwolves fan hitting those threes, you're just like, man, I watched you hit so many wide open threes, like, and you're just making every single thing on us. So that was obviously like just a nice like
one of those games.
Yeah. Wolves side, obviously, Cat MVP, rough game. I thought Anthony Edwards, he obviously didn't have his legs to him, but I mean, he is the number 1 player on the team, and he, I would say, kind of was pretty flat all night. I mean, he obviously did some things like that one where he went right through the zone, Euro stepped his way in for a reverse layup. Like, that was impressive, but it's like, other than that, there wasn't really anything.
Hey, he can do that in his sleep, you know?
Yeah, it was like, that was impressive, but it's still just like, where were you the rest of the night? And I thought, I mean, like, Naz Reid might have had 13 points, but it kind of came at, like, bogus, like garbage time. So I would say more Nickeil Alexander-Walker, because I felt like, when Jaden gets in foul trouble or he's out of the game, Nickeil.
I'm a fan of him, by the way.
Yeah, like he started off the season slow. His shot is coming around. He made a couple threes, and I mean, he is their primary. Like when Jaden goes to the bench, he's going to be your point of attack defender. So I would say Nickeil is underrated, but yeah.
He's a little bit of sort of like, because let's be real, probably a lot of fans don't really know who he is, but like sickos like me and you, I feel like we know who he is. And I feel like he adds to your guys' defense. He's got that long wingspan and just sort of known for the kind of player that he is. I feel like he's a pretty good defender, and especially coming off of the bench, I feel like that role suits him well. And how I was talking earlier about, this, to an extent, this game was sort of a game full of runs, at least maybe in the first half, because you guys would chip back into the lead. I remember he was a little bit, part of chipping back into the lead and everything. So it's good to see him get some points for you guys on the offensive end. All right, man. I just got to ask you this, because we thought we were going to have a lot more to talk about, but there's really not too much to talk about in terms of this game. So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here, man. There's really no right or wrong answer, but can you just talk to us about the Timberwolves season thus far? Let's just forget about tonight's game. The Timberwolves, man, I was doing a little bit of research earlier. Coming into tonight, you guys had 6 straight wins, longest win streak since March of 2022, and your 7-2 start was the best start in 22 years. You guys were and probably still are the number 1 defense in the league, despite tonight. Can you just talk to us about what you've seen from the Timberwolves so far, what you've seen out of Karl Anthony Towns or Edwards, or really just the team in general? Are you happy with the current state of the Warriors, man? Like, can you just talk to us? Like, let us Suns fans know what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but I know it's like about average or like 18th in the league for offensively. Like
not bad, middle of the pack.
So it's not when you think you have Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards, you'd imagine the offense is a lot better than what it is. And so that has to turn around. But the good thing is obviously the defense is number one. And that's kind of, I mean, last year their defense was better than their offense, but Karl Anthony Towns was also out for most of the season. You're being led by a Rudy Gobert defense. So it is really fun to see the defense just like number one. Like they found their identity. That's what they've been doing, and it's been working. Offensively, I know things will turn around, but overall, I mean, like they've had some really good wins. And I mean, I was born in 1998. I can't say I've watched many winning seasons from the Timberwolves or just many good bad games. And yeah, it's early, but it has been really fun. Like these first like 10 games, just like looking at the standings and being like, oh, like we're like a half game out of first place. I mean, that's changed now, but
it's going to change a lot throughout the season.
It's like never happened in my life where I could like look at the standings and be like, oh, sweet, that we're like maybe like after the first game of the season, you could be like, oh yeah, that just like hasn't happened for Minnesota.
Exactly. No, man, I appreciate that feedback. I mean, I'm happy for you guys, and it's a loaded Western Conference, especially this year. I know it's still early. You and I could probably be having a completely different conversation the next time you're on the show, but like, I'm happy for you guys. I think you guys are a real threat. And again, man, I know you didn't hear it, but Kevin Durant was on the radio and gave you guys a lot of credit. So if Kevin Durant's saying that, then you know he's got the eyes on the Wolves and all that. I'm sure a lot of other teams have you guys on the scouting report and everything. And, you know, it's a long season. One more on the spot question for you, because I can name like a million flaws with the Suns, but like, do you think the Wolves have any flaws right now? Like, I don't know. Is the scoring? Is it like rotations? Like, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I would say the offense, but that is kind of like been less of a question mark because Karl Anthony Towns has come around. So
especially the last like few games.
Yeah.
I sent you that tweet earlier.
Yeah, and he's been really good defensively. So it's like his offense has been bad. His whole career he's been good offensively. So like you know that was coming. So it's nice to see that kind of come back to like, you know, like how he has been usually on offense. So right now, I would say the biggest issue is just kind of like getting that bench production. Like obviously you have Kyle Anderson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker has come around now, and you have Oz Reed. So that helps, but like they signed Shake Milton, and Shake Milton can get you buckets. And he hasn't done that this season. He's had a few like moments where you're like, oh, like that's why we signed you. So I'm hoping that like that kind of comes around shortly. I mean, he's been playing like in the garbage minutes where you're kind of like, oh, you should be obviously not be playing in these garbage minutes, but you're playing because you have not found your rhythm offensively. So it should come around, and I'm hoping that's the case.
Kind of sounds like some of the Suns' flaws because, you know, before tonight's game, our bench was a little inconsistent. We'd see some flashes of the bench and the scoring and everything. But, and, you know, like I said earlier, there are times where the bench showed us, you know, that's why we signed you. That's why we brought you in. You can fill in for Bradley Beal. You can fill in for Devin Booker and everything. But there's some nights where the bench was kind of non-existent. I think a lot of teams in the league have that issue. But I appreciate your feedback and everything, man. So real quick, you guys, I just want to read you guys a couple of notes that I wrote down. Now, again, a lot of this is just in the first half because that was when really the domination started. Book's first points came at the 10:07 mark. Like I said, Book and Towns were cooking, especially in the first quarter. Book and Towns had 8 points and 9 points in 5 minutes. They're both 4 for 5 or 4 for 4 shooting. Booker in 8 minutes had 11 points, 2 assists. Towns had like 12 or 14 points or something like that. You know, I mentioned how, you know, KD and Book were kind of rotating and everything and subbing in. That was really good for somebody like KD and everything. Wolves went on an 11-3 run to cut into the lead at the end of the first. You know, Drew Eubanks had that poster in the second quarter. It felt like a few times the Suns would go on big runs that would like, it'd be like a 14-point lead, 15-point lead. And then, like I mentioned, I had those stats at the end of the first half. We were just on fire, 76 points. And then the rest was kind of history right there. The Suns, you know, KD and Booker dominated. And it wasn't just the scoring. I saw somebody in the chat mention it earlier, the assists. Kevin Durant tonight was our leading assist maker. I believe had 6. Booker had 5. Again, we got great production from guys like Grayson Allen, Eric Gordon. A lot of Suns fans have been wanting to see Chimezie Metu who's a fan favorite, although he like never plays for some reason. But again, Frank Vogel's still kind of experimenting with everything. Metu looked pretty good in the minutes that he had. He only played 4 minutes. We had 4 points and 2 rebounds. But again, man, that's kind of the exciting thing about this team is we have guys that we haven't even seen yet that could bring big value to us. There's been some inconsistencies like with Utah Watanabe and everything, but still some really exciting stuff, man. So any final thoughts? Like, I know this is kind of a short-ish show. I mean, we can talk about more stuff, but any just kind of final thoughts to put a bow on this? Because I think we pretty much went over everything.
Yeah, I would say game wise, if when the Wolves kind of made that little run back and it was like 4-point game in the first.
I wrote that down, man. I was like,
once Devin Booker made that one shot with 2 seconds ago, it just was like, yeah, there was all the momentum, and it went right all the way back to the other side. It just kind of wasn't looking back. I guess on the songs, like you can go up and down the lineup. Like Nazir Little, doesn't even really play. Like you guys have dudes to fill in if you need to.
That's what I'm saying.
My thing so far, I mean, and I haven't watched a ton of the Phoenix Suns games just because they are late at night, so it doesn't always work on Central Time. How has Yusuf Nurkic been to you? Because to me, every time I watch him, he's been really underwhelming, in my opinion. And maybe I've missed all of his good games, and I've only seen the bad moments. But I feel like every time I watch, I haven't seen anything that positive.
Great question, and this is a good little segment here. Wasn't the best game for him tonight.
Yeah, that's what I say. His game tonight was brutal, and obviously that was a huge talking point with DeAndre and moving. We've had these conversations for a while.
Yeah. And that's a fair question, too. I'm glad you asked me. I think really just the best way to put it is just inconsistent. There's some nights where he looks like he can do it all. There's nights where he's sometimes our best playmaker, our best rebounder, does a lot of little things out there. But tonight, there's just some nights where it's sort of Ayton-esque. The body language isn't right. He doesn't look fully engaged. One thing I've noticed, he gets into foul trouble, fast. In some games, that's not good. Even though I was hyping up Drew Eubanks and he had a great game, Drew Eubanks can't carry this team from the big man position. So it's been tough, man. But I'm a believer in him. Maybe I'm biased. Maybe I'm a homer. I'm trying to believe in him, man. We brought him in for a reason. Matt Ishbia, our owner, James Jones, our GM and everything, they're like, he's a fit for us. That's why we brought him in. But he's got to be more consistent, man. I think a lot of these guys need to be consistent on the Suns, but definitely Nurkic because, one, he's still under a reasonably big contract, and he's our starting big man. You have to be consistent, especially when you have 3 great scorers like Booker, Beal, and KD. Come on, man, your job should be easy. I know it's not that simple, but it's true.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's he has so much talent where it's you've seen him in Portland. There's games where you said he has the stuff where
flashes.
He's a big guy. So every time he's down there knocking bodies, you don't really have an answer for something like that. So yeah, tonight I've only seen the bad games, and then watching tonight, I was just is that how it's been all season? I haven't watched all 11 games, so I'm not gonna say he's been bad. So just from my just small sample size, I guess I'll say.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's been an inconsistent Nurk experience. I'll just say that, man. Yeah, man. I've seen a couple people ask in the chat and everything, and everybody probably saw it unless you've been living under a rock. We're gonna kind of transition here just real quickly. The Wolves and Warriors scuffle incident, whatever you want to call it, the complete overreaction from a infamous man named Draymond Green. It was just announced earlier tonight that he was suspended for 5 games. I believe Clay and McDaniels and all them got fined and all that. What are your thoughts just on that scuffle? Do you think the suspension was fair? Do you think it should have been more or less? What coming from an actual Wolves fan, it's not like this happened to the Suns, so I would probably have my thoughts on it. But what do you think, man?
Yeah. So they played Sunday night. Yes, they played Sunday. Yeah. And that game, obviously, the Timberwolves won that one, but things got a little chippy between them. It kind of most of it kind of also stemmed just from, obviously, you guys probably saw the Draymond Green, Anthony Edwards going back and forth at each other. And then there was the whole Chris Paul. I don't like Chris Paul. I know he's a former Suns player, but I can't stand him.
I know.
He's a dirty player too, and so like he dove at Mike Conley's knees.
Ooh. Chris Paul knows better than that too, man.
Yeah, and so he dove like it was a pretty like clear thing, and like apparently the Timberwolves beat reporters were saying like all the players in the locker room were pretty upset about that he did that, and Rudy Gobert liked the tweet on Twitter, obviously, and said, and he was liking a tweet about how like Chris Paul is one of the dirtiest players in the league, and then so it was kind of like stemming in the game, and then it went into social media and to comments in interviews post game, and then of course, you know, the rest is kind of history. So I would say it's worth it. We've seen Draymond. This is not like just a one-off game where he just like randomly, you know,
only a chokehold, says JR2. Only a chokehold. Sorry.
Yeah, him and Rudy have had their long-going beef. You knew that like he probably was just waiting for that moment. They obviously don't like each other. So yeah, I mean we've seen like all this stuff like with like Sabonis last season. Like it's been just nonstop with Draymond throughout his career. I don't know why Rudy got fined. I mean, I'm sure it was because he tried.
Probably ran in and tried to,
But yeah, so I mean, I didn't think any other players should be suspended besides Draymond. But yeah, I'm kind of happy to see him get 5 games because I can't stand the Warriors.
And I think Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN had the tweet that the reason they gave him the suspension for 5 games because he, and I quote, is a repeat offender. I think that pretty much sums it up right there, man. I hope the Phoenix Suns are never on the end of something like that, but you can clearly tell that there's beef between the Warriors and the Timberwolves. And look, I don't really want to promote, violence and chokeholds and all that, but I will say, as a fan of the history of the game, I go back to like the Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, the 80s, all that stuff. I think the NBA could use a little bit of fire. We need kind of stuff like this. Yeah. Again, I don't want to promote violence, but it's kind of cool sometimes to see that. Wasn't there like another one with like the Mavericks last night too? Like what was going on the other night?
Yeah, there was. I can't remember. I know there was a video, and I just never got around to it because my entire timeline, obviously, just on both sides was
exactly.
Was all
I feel like that the Wolves one overshadowed the Mavs one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
It's
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I saw the comment below with the McDaniels thing. McDaniels basically said like they were going in. It was basically like he said that he thinks some things are funny and some people don't think they're funny. But I mean, we saw it. Like it started with Clay grabbing at McDaniels like jersey neck area. McDaniels said to like get off of him, and then obviously in a competitive game that they knew going into it was going to be a little chippy like that, stemmed into it. So they both started kind of, pulling each other's jerseys and doing stuff. So they're both at fault in my opinion. But obviously, I think Clay started it just because he did grab at that. At the first part, but obviously McDaniels is just at fault. So exactly,
and I feel like. Whether it's more or less games, I feel like the suspend. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily fair, but I think it needed to happen. Repeat offender for Draymond, the fines and everything from Clay, McDaniels, and everything. I feel like the league, to an extent, knows what they're doing when it comes to all that stuff, and they look at it. I'm sure they looked at it extremely closely because of somebody like Draymond. So I don't know, man. But on that note, I know this was sort of a shorter live show, Suns fans, but at least I feel like we talked about everything we needed to talk about. Do you have any final thoughts on just anything? Anything else you'd like to talk about? Any more questions? If not, man, we'll probably just wrap this thing up.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I mean, I don't have much either. It was over after the first quarter. So, like, any game notes you could take away was in the first quarter. After that, it was kind of like the Wolves maybe, like, chipped away. It was like, oh, they're at 18. They're at 19 points. So, it's like, yeah, it was a night that I was hoping was going to be over pretty quickly after the first quarter. And we'll see. I mean, like, Booker, like, the biggest thing with the Suns is the health of their 3 guys. And that's always been a question mark, throughout their careers so far. And, I mean, if healthy, I mean, they're going to be a lot of fun. They're going to be, like, top priority on League Pass every night.
Exactly, man. And you know what, Suns fans, I know that a lot of us were disappointed, bummed out, whatever word you want to use, angry that Bradley Beal didn't play tonight, but you can't mess with back injuries, you guys.
Yeah,
Cannot mess with back injuries. Devin Booker makes everything more calmer. And obviously, when he's on the court, the Suns are a better team. So just be patient, Suns fans. It's a long season. And yeah, man. And I appreciate you being here, brother. Thank you so much for your insight and opinions on the Timberwolves. It's good to have another fan who knows what he's talking about, you know, from another fan base be on the show. So do you want to let the people know where they can find you? It was kind of a long day for me, so I wasn't able to like fill out the description and everything and put your info, but you just want to tell the people where to find you, man.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. I mean, my name, I think, shows up for everyone on there. It just says Let's Talk Wolves. It's basically Let's Talk _Wolves. So that's where you can find me on Twitter. And apologies for the bell ringing. That's just the dogs running around just going crazy. So
no, man, trust me, we get it over here at Suns Geek. My dogs are always barking or something's going on. You know what I mean? It happens, brother. But thank you so much for joining me, man. The show was fun. We got to do it again. Hopefully next time we'll actually have more to talk about and it'll be a closer game and everything. And
a Wolves win. I think last year all of them were just like L's too, so just like it'd be nice to come on here a little happier.
like I said, man, Wolves Suns Western Conference Finals. You heard it here first on Suns Geek, man.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yep. All right, everybody. Once again, check out the links down below in the description. Follow my guest, Let's Talk Wolves, and we will see you guys probably after the back-to-back Jazz games and everything, because those are our next 2 games. Stay tuned for more content. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if it has to deal with the Phoenix Suns, I'm going to make a video about it. Peace out. God bless and go Suns.
What's up, Suns Geek?